Dungeon Masters of Reddit, which of your sure why nots had the biggest unintended repercussions? I threw in a random NPC passed out at the tavern. Everyone was meeting it to discuss their B&E job. Next thing I know, the party is following him home, staking out his house, etc. Turns out the fact that he had a purple coat on was too interesting, and my initial campaign got scrapped so they could defeat the purple coats who were plotting to take over the government. Who knew? I had an alchemist and a tinkerer/engineer in one of my games. Both were obsessed with blowing things up, and I let them experiment with different things. Well, they ended up making a metal vase that would direct the explosion in a single direction. I thought they would use it to nuke bad guys. One session they were trekking through a mountain pass, and I had intentionally taken out a bridge that was the only way across a gorge to force the players to go through a mountain pass, which was basically the next 2 sessions. They ended up using said vase they had made before to create a rocket sled. I gave them a really high DC to succeed. Nat 20. The whole party flew over this gorge hanging onto a sled for dear life. Welp, there goes 2 weeks of prep work and the next 2 sessions. It screwed me, but it was definitely a memorable moment. The big evil bad guy was making some good points, so they asked if they could join. Character wanted a deck of many things-esque D20 that manifested random magic effects when rolled. Sure, why not? One of the bad effects was everyone had to make a save, and if they failed, they became hostile towards the character. So it happens a few times. Character knows full well that his die can make that happen. They meet Gresh, the Unspeakable, the council leader of a town ruled by ghosts, reputed to have conquered entire worlds in life. He rolls the die upon meeting him, and it lands on the hostility effect. Gresh, being a ghost, possesses the character and makes him slit his own throat. Traveler game about 30 years ago. My first campaign. Players decided to rob a bank on a high-tech domed/airless, significant later, world in the Spinward Marches. To defeat security, they befriended, then poisoned an Imperial Marine, and stole his power armor and fusion rifle. I allowed it, like a fool. They robbed the bank, but the Marine had been reported missing, and so the military and police were both closing in. After a running firefight, they made it to their ship, and made some ridiculous rolls to not get shot down. By this time, the body count was in 3 figures and thief pissed off everyone with a gun within several AUs. So, by the time they exit the dome, they're intercepted by several naval ships, including a cruiser. They had no chance, and they knew it. The only sensible thing to do was surrender and be boarded. They knew that too. So of course they dived the ship straight into the main dome, burning it to 5 grams. The dome blew, and everything died, including my dear players and my campaign. 6 million people dead. Still the biggest atrocity I've ever seen in a tabletop RPG. Learned a lot from that one. Edit. Thanks for the gold, kind strangers. I had a trap laid in waiting of a bunch of orcs and wargs that were posing as beggars. My awful good cleric offered to give the maiden money and asked if there was anyone hurt. I rolled with it, thinking a room would be a better trap for them. He then proceeded to heal the aging leader, gaining his trust and the respect of the gang. The ranger did some animal handling to clean the wargs up and make them healthier. They then had a loyal group of street thugs to gather info off of. This then spun off into a side campaign of only orcs that was crazy fun, and was used for fill-in when I wasn't able/ready to DM for a session. Edit. This story blew up. Context. I wasn't familiar with item prices, or how much gold the party had saved. This was a party of 8. Is 2,000 reasonable price for legendary magic items? Sure, why not? Cool in buying a Staff of the Magi, and everyone else will buy one legendary magic item. *internal monologue **t. Edit. So as bad as this was, it honestly ended up making a nice boss fight later. So the 6th level characters had a bunch of legendary magic items, and were gonna go up against the big bad. I made a mechanic where, at the beginning of the fight, the big bad drained all of the magic item power in the area. As the big bad took damage, he leaked power, and the magic items slowly recovered power, allowing the fight to start out seeming hopeless, but by the end, the players could just straight up obliterate the boss. Lesson to all DMs, if you make a mistake, you can probably do something with it. Maybe don't make legendary magic items cost 2000 GP though. Edit 2. A lot of people have been saying that I should have made it a scam, or otherwise made the magic items useless or way too difficult to use right after they bought them. While that is an idea, keep in mind that this was the next to last session, and they barely managed to beat the final boss on time. Another I was the player. As a halfling in the Warhammer universe, we came across a herd of goats. I attempted to tame one of said goats and succeeded. I then checked if my halfling could ride said goat and the GM allowed it. GM thought he could kill it off easily. GM was dead wrong. My halfling rode that goat into hell and back. Good times. Let a rogue hide in a pickle barrel while being chased by guards. Guard noticed the displaced pickle juice and came to check it out. Rogue sneak attacks out of the pickle barrel for a critical hit and kills him. Rogue pulls him away and gets back in the pickle barrel. Kills 2 more guards like this. They ended up lugging that F***king pickle barrel through the whole dungeon, setting it up, drawing attention to it, and jacking the boxing people. Letting a real-life chemical major have access to a bunch of raw materials. Bombs for days, boys. Edit. For those wondering about metagaming and player vs character knowledge, the character was built with the science crafting equivalents to a surgeon's treat injury check. I just didn't realize how little it takes to make the world F***king burn to the ground. Science is scary. Not the DM, but I have a distinct feeling my DM is regretting allowing a new party member, who was a ship's cook, before joining our party, to set up a food cart as a cover for our party being somewhere we weren't supposed to be. Now my character and his are obsessed with getting him the proper permits for running his food cart in town. We spent probably an hour last session at the permit office, while the poor DM tried everything in her power to deny us a permit. Well, my next stop for a permit is a local legitimate businessman. Either we're going to have that food cart permit by the end of next session, or my character will suddenly and violently die under mysterious circumstances and the DM will wash her hands of the whole debacle. But damned if I'm not going to try. TL. Dr. My DM was foolish enough to tell us a story about some other campaign she heard of where the players derailed it by taking over a business in a town and running a shop for the remaining 2 years of the campaign, and somehow think that our party's response would not be challenge accepted. Update. Last night whilst playing Destiny with my DM, our chef happened to hop into party chat, and the DM just said, "Oh good, I want to run some stuff by the food cart people." Such as, how would we feel if she planned for us to franchise with the really good waterfront curry restaurant we've been eating at almost exclusively since we got to town? We're in business, folks. One of my friends asked once to be able to put spells inside of a bag of holding, and the DM went, "Why not? You can't safely retrieve them." So at the end of the day the sorcerer would any unspent spells as fireballs into the bag. End of the campaign. After putting a lot of fireballs into the bag they were up against the BBEG. He used Dimension Door to get next to the boss, and then he turned the bag inside out. Blew himself and the boss straight to hell. Lava pit. That said, do not enter. Ended a 2-year campaign. Edit. Reddit Silver. Thank you, kind stranger. We had 2 in the party that could raise and control the dead. Ended up having half a dozen skeletons that would go first into every room. Each got their own hit rolls. If one of them was defeated by whatever it was fighting, as soon as the fight was over, they would just raise dead again and use them for the next fight, plus whatever we just fought added on to the end of the parade. We basically did nothing the whole time because the DM said sure, why not, when they wanted to have a skeleton army. I offered one of my players to earn easy XP by paying off some old lady's debt after finishing a session. The old woman was just a random NPC, but the players asked if there was anything they could do to help. I was figuring that this would just be an easy swap of money for XP. To my surprise, he started asking me really pointed questions about her interest rate, collateral, principal investments, etc. Long story short, my players ended up inventing credit cards within this campaign setting. I had to keep track of their outstanding balances, minimum payments, and interest rates for several months afterwards. let a party member throw a sword to deflect another thrown object in midair as a last-ditch effort to stop the BBG's plan. Of course it was a crit, and I had to rework my entire final act of the campaign. Not me, but a friend who was a player told me about this huge undead dungeon the DM had spent a lot of hours mapping out. DM has a nearby river, cause the party needed a last minute drink of water before going in. Why not? Turns out they rerouted the river into the dungeon in trance and had the cleric continuously bless the water flow. Obligatory player warning, and this was very much a lack of wanting to define something one way as opposed to another, but I think it counts. We get into a fight with a bunch of guards. And would basically lose thanks to the sheer numbers game and the fact our party doesn't have a dedicated healer. I'm paging the handy dandy rogue and go sifting through my inventory and find a bag of exactly 1000 steel ball bearings. Hey DM, if I were to fling, say, a steel ball bearing at someone out of a sling, how much damage would it do? DM tells me it'd do a d4. I ask if it would be the same if I could get it propelled by a spell strong enough to easily shove a half-orc 10 feet. Sure, why not? Insert troll face here, because I ask our Eldritch Knight if he knows Thunderwave. Surprise, he does. Half an hour later, the DM was still rolling and sorting d4s, and the lowest damage done was in the low 400s. Of course, the whole party was mulched, but yeah, no, win some, lose some. I've had a session 0 idea in mind for my group for a while, but was thinking it would be a while before they would need to or want to play a new story. 1 week after the end of the other DM's game, they told me they weren't really feeling any attachment to their current characters. It was their first game, and some of the choices they locked into didn't mesh well with what they wanted. So I got to use my session 0 idea. The idea is, the Eastern Kingdoms is under duress. Dwarves are attacking from the north, the elves across the Great Sea have lost their home and are landing on the eastern coast in droves, and pirate activity is rampant. Unhappy with the state of the kingdom, citizens are traveling west to the Western empires to make a new life for themselves. The party joins one such caravan. This is where things go awry. The party is supposed to notice the caravan leader scratching his head over a conundrum. A forest has sprouted up across the trail, whereas hasn't before. However, we do not even get to this. The party, before they even see the forest, murder everyone on the caravan in the dead of night. They wander into the forest with their new loot, not even the least suspicious. They are ambushed by an evil spider druid and a massive swarm of giant spiders. They make it out, barely alive, but realize that there is a shrine nearby through a note the druid, named Muffet, had on their body. Anyway, the plan goes as normal, but it was a strong start to one of my favorite games I've run. We're actually doing kind of a reverse Tyranny of Dragons, where the half-dragon player is collecting the masks to bring Sharmat back to the mortal realm. Sent people on a quest to rescue a king. Couldn't think of a cool name. Called him Steve. When the group got to the captor's hideout and found it empty, my intention was to say they arrived too late for dicking around too much in a tavern in previous town. One of the group suddenly proclaims, no, it's not empty. I am Steve, I gave you this quest to save myself. From myself. Whole table laughs, calling him ridiculous. He insists. I tell him he has to roll a 20 to reveal himself as Steve. He rolls a 20. End of mission. Make sure to like and subscribe for more daily content. Thanks for watching.